Hi everyone, I'm here today with Tom Ewer of Leaving Work Behind, and we're going to have a great chat, I hope, about freelance blogging, blogging in general, and how to leave work behind and make money doing things you really love. So, Tom, it's really great to meet you. It's great to see a face and be able to finally link that up to all the things I've read about you and all the things that I've read by you as well. So, first of all, can you just tell me a little bit about your history and about how you made that decision to leave work behind and start your own blog?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. So thanks for having me. So yeah, where do I start? It's probably it's probably important to say that at school I wasn't much of an academic. I got really bad grades. I wasn't focused. I didn't know what I wanted from life, and I was just a bit of a mess academically speaking. So I scraped through school. I scraped through university. Just about got a degree, just. And when I came out of school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I essentially just fell into a part-time job with my father's business, and
Yeah,
that that was more accidental than anything, and it ended up being full-time, and it ended up just kind of my role just grew and grew and grew, and it was going really well. And about 5 years in, I was paid well. It was very secure. The prospects were really good. Everything about this kind of accidental career choice screamed, "This is going great."
yeah,
But around May of 2011, last year, I just eventually, it was almost overnight, just kind of said, you know what, this isn't this. I'm just not happy with this. I'm not fulfilled by essentially, I didn't really know quite what it was at the time, but essentially I wasn't fulfilled by the concept of being employed. It just didn't work for me. My father's very entrepreneurial, so I guess it's just something that he instilled in me when I was young, and it just kind of been bubbling under the surface, and it finally came up. And so in May 2011, I decided that I wanted to quit my job and launch my own business. The only problem being is I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. And that basically, from that point onwards, up until I did actually quit my job in December, was just a whole load of experimentation, which eventually led me to freelance writing.
okay, so along the way with that, you had some niche websites
Mm.
that you started up,
Yeah.
and I always love reading about those because sometimes you're so self-deprecating about it.
I'm
So how did you decide to start off with that specifically?
see, you asked that question as if I might have some kind of plan, but I didn't. Um, I just I was just looking for anything. I started off. I was looking to sell stuff on eBay, so I'd buy wholesale and sell retail. Because actually, that's something I used to do when I was about 14, 15, 16. I used to do that on a really small scale, back before I lost my entrepreneurial spirit, which I've now found again. So I was looking at that. I was looking at I started looking at Gumtree and Craigslist to see if I could pick up like something for nothing and then sell it. And these things, they're not scalable. The margins are
Yeah.
incredibly tight, and I realized very quickly it wasn't viable. And I think I came across, it's quite bizarre how I remember it so specifically. I came across a guest post on ProBlogger by a guy called Onibalusi Bamidele, and he's a Nigerian freelance writer. I'm sure you're familiar with him.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting that that's the first guest post or post really about making money online that I remember reading, because it was by a freelance writer, but I had no interest in freelance writing at that point. And just mentioned someone in the post, Pat Flynn of Smart Passive Income.
Yeah.
I went over to that blog and found his niche site Duel post series, and I basically read the whole thing front to back a couple of times over, and just thought, wow, this is amazing. I'm naturally a skeptical person, but I was kind of looking at this and thinking,
Yeah.
I can kind of see the viability here. It might not be as easy to execute as it looks, but I can see where there's potential. So that's really what gave me the inspiration to try niche sites. But well, it's fair to say it didn't work very well for me.
So both on the way to leaving work behind and with your blog leaving work behind, what would you say would has been your best or your worst, if you don't have a best you can choose, experience out of the whole thing?
Well, I'd like to think there's a best. I think so far, and I'm hoping it's all good from here. But so far, I think when I published my first Leaving Work Behind list, Leaving Work Behind 100, which is basically a list of 100 blogs that I think the niche or my readers should follow. And it wasn't just kind of like a throwaway list. It's something I poured an enormous amount of time and effort into producing a genuine list of well thought out blogs. And I published that back in February of this year.
Yeah.
And my traffic, I think in January, was 3 or 4 thousand visitors. And I published this post, and I literally individually emailed every single blogger on the list, kind of mentioned it to them, and organically, I didn't want to do the whole kind of spammy, just send the same email out to 100 people. And
Yeah.
really good response from, I got about a response from about half, I think. And they were literally every single one, apart from one, I won't name any names, was positive. And the traffic that month went up to 10,000 from 3 or 4 thousand. So it was a big success, and the traffic spike I got in the day I published it and the days after, there was a real highlight. I don't think you can beat that moment as a blogger when one post it didn't go viral, but it went big and people were talking about it. And I think for me it was less going viral, because you can go and stumble upon and get a whole load of hits and just a huge bounce rate, and it doesn't really mean anything. But for
Yeah.
me, I think it kind of, a lot of people who are influential in the blogosphere got to know me through that post and heard about me, and I was getting talked about a bit. And I think that was as exciting as anything else.
Okay, great. So if I've got my maths right, you must have been a freelance blogger for about a year now.
It's coming up to it. It's a few days off, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've had obviously some great success with that. But what I wanted to ask you is, after reading that post on ProBlogger that brought you to that decision that you wanted to make money as a freelance blogger, what did you do next?
Um,
How did you actually go from, okay, I read a post to here I am freelance blogging?
well, it wasn't actually that post on ProBlogger. It happened to be written by a freelance writer, but at the time I kind of poo-pooed the idea of freelance writing, without even considering it. And it
Yeah.
was only when I'd failed with the niche sites and other things that it was sheer frustration. I considered myself a decent writer. I thought, I'm a good writer, but I think, and it's a common story. I never thought, oh, I can make a living at writing. I would consider that
Yeah.
absurd. So I was just so frustrated that I wasn't getting to where I wanted to be. And I think I just happened to have a really particularly bad day at work. And I thought, screw this. I'm going to just throw in a few applications to ProBlogger jobs board and just see what happens. So I put in, I don't know, 5 or 10 applications on the job board, and got a few responses, and got a job out of that. But in terms of kind of defining the moment where I decided why I was going to do it, I know it's probably not a great answer, but it was just frustration. It was just
Yeah.
a way attempt, which I didn't really think much of at the time. And I think that really kind of speaks to persistence and just trying various different avenues, because you never know what's going to work out.
Yeah. I mean, I think really that's just the perfect sequence, isn't it? It's problem, decision, action. Oh, look, it's worked. So, in this year that you've been freelance blogging, you must have worked out lots of different ways to go about it, lots of different things that help, and also probably some things that really don't help. What do you think are the best tips that you could pass on to me now and pass on to everyone who's reading Be a Freelance Blogger?
Oh, that's a big question. Um, well, it's funny because I've just kind of made the point, that persistence
Yeah,
wins over almost everything. I mean, you've got to have ability, obviously. If you want to be a freelance writer, then you need to have a degree of writing skill. But again, that can be developed over time. So
yeah,
I think people often say it's a cop out, because people are, in this day and age, people are so impatient for this like actionable advice that, give me the 5 tips I need with which to become a well-paid freelance writer and I'll love you forever. It's like, I can try, but it's in you ultimately.
yeah. Often tip one is none of the tips I give you are going to be specific to your situation.
Mostly, yeah. So it's, for me, it's kind of, I do like to generalize to an extent, because I feel like that helps more people and focus on mindset. But if you can get it in your head that succeeding in anything is just a process, and that if you
Mm,
keep persisting, whether it's in a week's time, a year's time, or 5 years' time, you will eventually get there. Then to me,
yeah,
that unlocks a lot more doors than any kind of single piece of actionable advice I could give.
awesome. Okay, and if there's any one thing that you could just turn around and slap people and say, please stop doing that right now, it's not helping you, what would that be?
Oh, is this specific to freelance writing or blogging?
Freelance blogging, blogging in general.
Uh,
Any big mistakes you see people making?
Maybe I'll do one of both actually, because I have plenty of pet hates. Uh, Freelance writing is definitely content mills. Yeah, it's just not necessary. And not only that, okay, you're getting paid peanuts, so that's crap to start with, but you'll get
Yeah,
nothing for it. If you want to get paid peanuts, then go and do guest posts, because then at least you've got something to show for it. But you're producing this great resource of this 50 sites that will pay you to guest post, and I've kind of inadvertently posted on a couple of those sites without even thinking. I remember doing a guest post on Freelance Switch, and I
mm,
just did it because I wanted to promote my blog, and then they gave me $50. I was like, hang on, I wasn't expecting that, but great. Um, so don't do content mills. If you have a modicum of talent, you don't have to. And obviously, you might be saying, well, that's all very well and good, but how do I find these resources? Well, that's probably a big conversation for this point. But there are ways, and if you look, you will find them. So my first tip would be to just not go anywhere near content mills. It doesn't advance you. It doesn't take you anywhere.
yeah.
As for blogging, I won't say persist because I keep going back to that one. Blogging, I think, would be focus on the quality of your content above everything else. Because I think it's coming around full circle. People always used to say content is king. And then people kind of said, well, content's okay, but marketing's really important. And marketing is really important. But
Mm.
if you can produce something truly unique, demonstrate
Sorry.
something that's truly fascinating, then you will grow organically at so much of a faster rate. If you're just doing the same old post that everyone else is doing, your blog, and if you just pour your heart and soul into marketing, your blog will just kind of gradually grow and it'll do okay. But if you try and do something that no one else has done before, and I think perhaps my top 100 blogs list is an example of that. You don't really see that. I don't think I've seen that before in my niche. Then you will get recognized for it, and it will do you so much good than if you, like, for instance, I would rather you do one amazing post than three average ones. uh,
Mm,
it will make all the difference. So my tip for bloggers would be to focus on unique and fascinating content.
great. Well, I think that's probably almost exactly what I would have said to them too. So fantastic. At least I'm on the right track too. Now, talking about blogging, I know you've got this secret identity niche site that you've just started
Yeah,
where you're carrying out content experiments and stuff like that just to see what does what and what does and doesn't work. Can you tell me any more about that?
yeah, I can try. You can't blame me for not getting up again and trying. For those who don't know, I've tried niche sites and failed miserably, and that's the self-deprecation there. And this is more of an authority site. This is a real focus on content and how far you can get in Google without trying to game the system. So the focus of the site is initially entirely on content. So I'm picking out these very long tail specific questions that are targeted towards my niche, and writing articles are based very very specifically on those terms. And I'm just working on producing more and more and more content for the time being. The concept is essentially that when you come to launch a blog, you're going to be doing content production, you're going to be doing marketing, you're going to be doing social media, you're doing all these different things, and they're all, one would consider, perhaps necessary. But I just thought, well, let's say rather than splitting your focus three ways, you pour everything into one, which is always going to be there, which is content. The content's not going away. The marketing effort you do today might mean nothing in a week's time, but the content will still be there. So the more content I produce, the more I kind of monitor how Google ranks or doesn't rank the content. And additionally, the simple act of patience. If I just persist, and there we are again with persistence, if I just persist and produce more and more content, will I have to build links to get a foothold? And if I do get a foothold, can I increase that by simply branching out on what I consider to be the fundamentals? So producing a great design, great content, and then reaching out organically to other bloggers and doing what I would call link curation rather than link building. So you're not, throwing out 1,000 articles.
Yeah.
You're perhaps approaching very specific websites and asking, should we interview each other, or should we do this, or should we do that, and try and curate the links rather than build them. So really, it's very much an experiment in natural SEO and relying upon a great deal of patience. And I've called it the 1 hour authority site project because the concept for me is very simple. This hour per weekday is going into this project, and I'm just setting it to one side. I'm not worrying about whether it's succeeding massively. I'm not worrying about whether it's making any money. I'm just basically saying that hour is gone and something will come of it, or it won't. Either way, I will have learned something. So I guess we'll just have to see how that develops.
That's a really interesting approach. I like that. So you're literally just kind of saying, okay, this is an hour. I'm going to spend this hour every day, and then I'm not going to fuss.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to, I don't know if you've heard of Google's 10% time.
Yeah.
So you've got an employee at Google, and they basically say for 10% of your time, just go and do something, and either something will come of it, or it won't. But you don't worry yourself about it. And for me,
Yeah.
it's similar to that. It's like I don't know if it's going to work. If it does, great. If it doesn't, then maybe I'll learn something. But either way, I'm not going to pressure myself to get results. I'm not going to say in 90 days I want to be on the first page of Google or #1 in Google, which is what I did with my previous niche site, and it ended up getting to the first page, getting to #1, started earning money, then got penalized, dropped off, dead. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So it's like a no pressure zone. Here's my hour, it's invested, get over it, and something will happen or it won't. We'll see.
Mm. No, I really like that. I mean, I think I probably do something similar, but I think of it as my hour of just thinking time.
Mm.
I'm not thinking for money. I'm not thinking about anything in particular. I just kind of walk around the house making cups of tea and things like that. And then every now and then I'll go and I'll just grab my phone and say, interview Tom Ewer soon as possible
It's
and make a note of it.
it's funny you should say that because I published a post on my blog a few weeks ago, basically saying just that. In order to get real inspiration for business ideas or blogging ideas, whatever it may be, you need to afford yourself time and space and silence, and these things will suddenly come. So I'm
Yeah.
totally on board with you on that.
Ever since I was a teenager, I've been sitting there thinking, now, how can I just get paid to think?
Hmm.
And I found the simple answer was if I'm thinking about the right things, I can charge so much for all the time I am working that it does pay for the time I spend thinking.
Yeah, that's a very good way.
And that's worked really well for me because I get my little hour of thinking time every day, and then I have a couple of hours of, focusing very hard on one specific action for clients. And then I can wander off and spend the rest of the day with my kid and my partner and just go, okay, thinking's done, work is done, onward.
Well, to an extent, action's overrated. I know that sounds ridiculous, but you can spend so many hours doing something which doesn't really get the job done. But if you afford
Mm.
time to think about it, then you can do great things in less time.
Yeah. I always try and think of my social media time as it's actually fun time.
Mm.
It's fun time while I'm chatting with people, and therefore it's not work, and I don't need to think about, digits anywhere. It's friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally takes the pressure off.
Mm.
Okay, so the other project that I'm really keen to hear about is your ebook, which you're currently still working on.
Right,
And that's going to be about how to be a freelance blogger.
indeed.
So obviously that's incredibly relevant to me, and it's going to be incredibly relevant to everyone who's watching this. So what can you tell us so far? Do you have a title yet?
I can tell you that it's a beast. I don't have a title yet. Um, I'm kind of leaving that till the end. I mean, obviously, it could simply be how to be a freelance blogger. That would be the most specific title, but I haven't given great thought to a title. I'm just working on finishing the damn thing because it just keeps growing and growing. Um, and that's probably something. Well, it is something that I'm addressing at the moment because this week actually I've completely taken time off writing the book, and I'm taking this week to plan the launch. So now
Yeah.
to launch day and beyond, chronologically, what am I doing? What time do I need to do it? Because I have been writing, but I've just been floating along, writing more and more and more and more. And I could be here in a year's time and have a 100,000 word book, and I still wouldn't have done anything with it. So I'm putting the pressure on myself to go to launch this week in terms of planning it all out. So that's where I am at the moment with the book.
Okay, well, one thing that's just made me think of is, are you consciously taking some of the ideas you've had and going, I'm going to set that aside for the sequel?
No,
Are you planning that far ahead?
there's no sequel. This is, in terms of freelance blogging, I really want this to be as complete as I can make it. I don't, yeah, sequels work for some things, but I want someone to pick this up who is either new to freelance blogging and thinks maybe I can do this, or someone who's been trying it and is really struggling. I'm sure you're aware there's a lot of people out there who have literally been doing it for years and are earning peanuts, and they just, I get emails from people saying, you've been doing this for a year, I just can't comprehend how you've achieved what you've achieved. And my response is, there are people doing so much better than me. There's all these kind of stages, and I really want this to address. Or I want it to speak to those people, and I want those people to pick this book up, read it through, take action, and have everything they need with which to make a successful freelancing career. That's the aim of the book. No holding back. No, here's an extra you need to pay $30 more for, or anything like that. Just kind of one simple single resource.
Okay, so if you're watching this a bit later down the line, if it's already 2013 or late 2012, we don't know what it's called, but it's by Tom Ewer. Go and look it up and buy it, because it will be the go-to book on freelance blogging.
Here's hoping.
Okay, awesome. I think probably I should cut it off there and just ask you the final question, which is, aside from at leavingworkbehind.com, where else can we find you or follow you online?
Well, obviously that's the main hub. But beyond that, I'm very active on Twitter. So if you go, it's Tom Ewer, Ewer on Twitter. If you message me on there, I will respond. I love Twitter. I'm a little bit addicted to it. Also on Facebook as well. So you can find me on facebook.com/leaving work behind. The difference between the two, because I do actually like to kind of mix it up a bit and not just be boring, is I tend to post lots of random photos of my day-to-day life on Facebook. And on Twitter, I tend to ramble about my life. That's the key distinction there. The kind of the image-based ramblings or the text-based ramblings, depending on which one you go for.
Okay, so if we bring that up in parallel, we might be able to draw some very strange correlations between the pictures and the rambling from the same time.
True, very true. Yeah.
Thanks so much for talking to me. It's been really great, and I hope to speak to you soon again.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, bye bye.